Hi guys, this is the story of a koi, a very special koi. So special, it's fair to say it's regarded still to this day as the greatest koi ever to have lived. And what makes this even more special is the koi itself has a story, a really very interesting story, and it's that story that I'm going to share with you today. We start the story in 1976 at Agawa koi farm in a small village in Sasebo on the island of Kyushu. Kyushu is a very small island located off the southernmost tip of Japan. They didn't know it at the time, but one of the many millions of koi fry that hatched at Agawa koi farm that summer would put Sasebo on the koi map forever. And to say the moment this koi fry hatched and took its first breath was a game changer in the world of koi is a massive understatement. Things were about to change forever. Agawa koi farm was the brainchild of the Agawa brothers, Yukichi and Haikichi Agawa. And unlike other koi farms at the time, the Agawa brothers, and particularly Haikichi, were driven by skin quality. And more specifically, the whole ideal centered around producing koi with the whitest, cleanest skin quality possible. So the parent koi, the parins, the cullin, everything they did was done with the goal of producing koi with the whitest skin imaginable. And the Agawa brothers believed that whiteness of skin was the key, single most important element that made a koi truly special, the thing that made a good koi a great koi. So while today we all know the importance of good skin quality, at the time, up to kind of 1976, where we start the story, skin quality wasn't something that breeders and judges would focus on and would emphasise as being a key element of a good quality koi. And in this respect, what Haikichi and Yukichi were doing at Agawa koi farm at this time was a huge risk. The region surrounding Sasebo was famed for its porcelain, and the brothers made it their goal to create a koi with a skin as white as the famed porcelain itself. Haikichi Agawa in particular dreamed of winning the All Japan show with a koi that he bred himself that had truly white skin. For many years prior to 1976, Agawa koi farm used a bloodline known as Tomoin or Tomoin, and through very selective parins and culling fry purely on skin quality, they'd started to create koi with a really truly white ground. And as such, Agawa koi were already very recognisable from koi bred by other breeders. One downside to what they were doing and the way they were doing it is the fact that koi breeding is very much a numbers game. Because the brothers were culling fry based on skin quality rather than pattern, they were producing koi with, let's say, unusual patterns, non-traditional patterns. And this was because, as I say, when you keep fish purely based on skin quality, pattern becomes very much secondary. So if the skin quality that you're looking for is there, for example, a koi will be kept regardless of if the pattern isn't traditionally ideal. And so, as well as being known for their white ground already, they were also known for, let's call them unusual patterns, less sought after patterns, shall we say. And that also applied to body shape to a lesser extent. Once koi get a little bit older, koi with poor body shapes may be culled, but at Agawa, if the white skin was what they were looking for, then koi with slightly less than perfect body shapes were also kept, and these all combined to make Agawa koi of the time stand out amongst other breeders' koi and be easily recognisable. And it was a mix of non-traditional pattern and perfect snow white skin that combined to create the koi that went on to change the koi world forever. So the tiny little kahaku in question had obviously perfect snow white skin, and even very soon after its birth this stood out even amongst the other koi at Agawa koi farm at the time. And the pattern was, shall we say, unique, maybe, I think is a fair way to describe it. But it's fair to say, even after just a few weeks, Heikichi Agawa had very, very high hopes for this little kahaku, even to the point of believing that this actually could be the one. So we fast forward now 3 years. When the kahaku reached 3 years of age, she was indeed incredibly beautiful koi, and it was at 3 years of age that she was to change hands for the first time. And this fact appears, shall we say, somewhat shocking. You know, how could Heikichi sell this very special koi? And it certainly wasn't because Heikichi had given up on her. He still believed she was incredibly beautiful, incredibly special. But the truth is, Agawa Koi Farm, first and foremost, is a business. And the koi was an asset which had a value. But it's also worth noting that she was sold only to Agawa Koi Farm's closest and best customer, and part of the deal to sell her meant that the brothers retained control of the koi's future. Fast forward again to the early 80s now, and the koi would change hands again for the second time, and this time she was purchased by Mr. Imanishi. And shortly before Mr. Imanishi purchased the koi, a group of archaeologists in the Far East began excavating an ancient site along China's Silk Road in the Lopner area of Xinjiang. And during this dig, they discovered an unbelievably well-preserved mummy of a lady, thought to be up to 4,000 years old. And the mummy itself was unbelievably well preserved, and such that it was obvious that the mummy was that of an incredibly beautiful woman. And as such, Mr. Imanishi decided that because of the koi's comparable beauty, coupled with the timing of the find, the koi would be named after the city in which the mummy was found. And so from this day forward, the koi with the incredibly beautiful white skin would be known as Loulan. As time went on, Heikichi continued to keep a watchful eye over the koi and monitor her development. And he was still confident at this time that she was indeed destined for greatness. He still harboured a dream of Loulan winning the All Japan Show Grand Champion prize. And this belief was shared by another extremely prominent koi keeper at the time, Mr. Hashimoto, who was another of Agawa Koi Farm's very well respected customers. And once he fell in love with Loulan, it's fair to say the writing was on the wall. And indeed, after long and difficult negotiations, Loulan was to change hands again. Mr. Hashimoto became Loulan's third custodian, and up to this point, she had never actually been entered into a koi show, which, given the obvious quality that the koi possessed, this is somewhat surprising at first glance. But the simple fact was that neither of her previous owners had been interested in showing her. I suppose it's akin to a beautiful painting, or a historically significant painting. Often they're bought up by private collectors, private individuals who keep them for their own, basically for their own pleasure. And that up to this point had been the case with Loulan. Fast forward again to 1989, however, and things were about to change. It's quite incredible to think that in the 13 years that had passed since Loulan was born, of the hundreds of millions of koi fry spawned at Agawa Koi Farm, and indeed every other koi farm in Japan and across the world, not one single koi had come close to the skin quality that Loulan possessed. Quite an unbelievable fact when you think about the numbers involved. And so it's quite incredible when you think about what is resting on those snow white shoulders. 13 years have been invested in this koi, and in that time nothing else had come along that had anything like the potential of Loulan. It's quite staggering. But in 1989, Mr. Hashimoto and Haikichi finally believed that at 13 years of age, Loulan was ready. It was time to launch her onto the national stage. Loulan was going to be entered into Japan's second largest koi show, the 1989 ZNA All Japan Nishikoi show. Haikichi-san was obviously incredibly nervous and apprehensive, as he'd invested a huge part of his life in Loulan, and his hope was that her distinctiveness could be accepted by the judges, that they were able to look beyond this and appreciate her for her strengths, the overriding one being her incredible white skin. Loulan's quality obviously was never in doubt, but would the judges be able to see beyond her, let's say, unique pattern and her other slight failings, or would they favour a lesser koi with a more traditional pattern? And that was the worry. And sadly, Haikichi's worries were to prove correct. Loulan failed to win the Grand Champion prize, and the owner and the breeder were absolutely devastated. Haikichi-san in particular hit him very, very hard, and he struggled to kind of come to terms with failing at the first hurdle. In the weeks that followed, however, there was a glimmer of hope. It became increasingly obvious that Loulan was sort of far and away the most popular koi at the show. All the talk in Japanese koi circles following the show had been about the koi with the snow white skin, and she actually garnered more column inches than the Grand Champion from the show. So the kind of interest had been piqued, if you like. She had made her mark, albeit not at the time with the judges, who were of course the important ones. It was this impact following the show that spurred Mr. Hashimoto and Haikichi on and convinced them that they should enter Loulan into the 22nd All Japan Koi Show of 1990. So if you're not familiar, the All Japan Koi Show is the biggest koi show on earth, bar none. The Grand Champion prize is absolutely the kind of pinnacle for breeders. It doesn't get any better than winning Grand Champion at the All Japan show. So Loulan was now 14 years old. She had stunning white skin, coupled with amazing crimson red, a unique pattern, and she measured 82 centimetres at the time, and she was ready. Now was the time. Because on the 23rd of December 1990 in Tokyo, Loulan entered and won the All Japan show and was crowned Grand Champion. And the fact was, she won it with ease, and Agawa Koi Farm's place in koi history was assured forever. Haikichi returned home victorious, a lifelong dream fulfilled. Let the celebrations begin. But tragically, unbelievably, the celebrations of the Agawa family were short-lived. For just 24 hours after Loulan won the All Japan show, Haikichi Agawa passed away. And just want to go off track a little bit to just make that, just to sort of think about that point. It is absolutely unbelievable that he could invest 14 years of his life in a single koi and believe from the moment it was that big that it was going to do great things. Not just believe, but know. It's absolutely unbelievable. For him to then pass away 24 hours after that dream came true, it's just mad. I mean, it is mad. It just makes you think, what would have happened if the koi show had been 2 days later? Is somehow his passing away related to reaching his goal, his dream coming true, and I just can't. It's just staggering. It's absolutely staggering. Yeah, I have no words really. Yeah, on with the story. So 2 years passed before the Agawa family felt kind of ready to enter Aikichi's Loulan into another koi show. And it was, as I say, 2 years later that Aikichi's brother Yukichi decided to try to sort of cement his brother's and the entire family's name in koi folklore by attempting to win a second All Japan show, something that had never ever been done before. And quite simply, winning for a second time just didn't happen. It had never happened, it had never even been close to happening. And so therefore, it was a huge risk to enter into another show, another All Japan show. But the family had enormous confidence in Loulan and obviously her unquestioned quality. So in 1992, at the age of 16, when lesser koi are many, many years past their best, and now measuring 86 centimetres, Loulan secured an unprecedented second All Japan Grand Champion title, the first koi in history to achieve that feat. Loulan then, she continued to captivate everyone who saw her, right up to her passing in 1998, at the age of 22. She was purchased with the idea of trying to breed from her, trying to spawn from her, but that was unsuccessful. And she eventually passed away peacefully, as I say, at the age of 22. Since her passing, she's been voted the greatest koi of all time, the best koi that's ever lived, and I don't think anybody can really argue with that. I think most people are of that opinion. It's fair to say Loulan moved the goalposts in terms of how koi are viewed and how koi are judged and appreciated, and that now to this day skin quality is, thanks to Loulan, considered to be where the real beauty of a koi lies.